Hi, Brent Haysecker here, and I'm going to talk to you about the difference between a fretted bass and a fretless bass. This video is intended for you if you're a bass player and you're thinking about buying a fretless bass, but maybe you're in a more rural area, you don't have access to a music store that has a fretless bass. You're lucky to even have a music store that has a fretted bass. You know, you walk in, there's 100 guitars, and there's like maybe 2 or 3 bass guitars off in the corner. It's like, yeah, thanks, appreciate that. So you probably don't have access to a fretless, and so you're thinking about buying one. You want to try one out, but your only option is to buy online. And before forking out the money to take that risk, you want to find out if it's something that's worth investing in. So what I do is I've got 2 bass guitars here. One's fretted that I'm holding here. The other one's fretless, and I'll just kind of give you a demonstration of how they differ. I'm using, and they're both the same model of bass, so that should kind of help out. Obviously, we know what a fretted bass is. You've got the frets. They stick up, and whenever you push the note down, it makes a note with, like that. Pretty obvious. I'm explaining the absolute obvious. Now, if you see here, regardless of where I move my hand within that fret, it's always the same note because the note's getting cut off at the fret. So whether I hit it here or hit it here, it's still the same note. So that's one of the advantages of a fretted bass, is that you can play, I guess, a little bit more sloppy, you could call it. You don't have to worry as much exactly where your finger falls. As long as within that fretted area, you're good. And the other difference, well, I'll show it once I get the fretless out, but some of the advantages of the fretted, we know what it sounds like when you slide a note on a fretted bass. You hear that sound, your fingers going across the frets. Sounds a lot different on a fretless. It's actually very smooth, of course. So anyway, if I play the bass line, that's pretty much what it sounds like on a fretted. Let me switch out basses here. And there's some things to think about with a fretless other than just how they sound and play, which I'll get to as well. Okay, so here's the fretless, and this is a lined, I don't know if you can tell on this camera or not, but there's fret lines on the fretboard to indicate where you should actually play. Obviously, a lot of fretless basses don't have any lines whatsoever, so you're just kind of left guessing, kind of like if you were a cello player or upright bass player. You just got to learn where to place your fingers on the neck. So at least on a lined fretless bass, you can at least see where the frets would be. Some people would call it a cheat, whatever. I've got lines on my fretless. And I don't know if I have these exactly dialed in the same way. That's a slide on a fretless. It's very smooth. You can slide into notes. You see how it's not just... You can slide in and out notes, which is really nice on a fretless. So just got a really nice smooth sound. It works really good in a worship environment. When you're playing a lot of worship songs, you can get really smooth lines, really slide in and out of notes, which sounds really good. Another thing about fretless bass versus the fretted is actually when my hands start really getting fatigued and tired because I've been playing too much, a lot of times I'll switch to fretless. And the reason is because since you don't have frets that you're playing against, it's actually a whole lot easier on your hand, a whole lot less fatiguing to play a fretless, because I'm not really pushing as hard. It's just I'm barely, I'm over emphasizing now, but you're basically just kind of touching the strings, and I got really low action. It's just really, I don't have to push it at all, so I can play a fretless bass a whole lot longer before I start tiring out than I can on a fretted. So a lot of times I'll just play fretless just because I'm a little bit tired out. Our worship set went really long, and then we got worship practice the next day, and I just want to give my hands a little bit of a rest, so I'll play the fretless. Since you don't have frets either, you can get the action really low on the bass, which is nice. I like having a really low action on my basses, and so fretless obviously allows you to do that. Now the tricky thing is on playing a fretless, like I was just showing you with the fretted bass, anywhere within that area of the fret you play, you get the same note. Where on a fretless, you have to play right on the money, or else you're going to be sharp or flat. So if I'm holding it right on the line, just by kind of wiggling my finger back and forth a little, just rolling it a little bit, you can get your intonation on or off there. So you really got to, when I play fretless, I tend to look at my hands a whole lot more than I do when I'm playing a fretted. So you really got to watch your fingers where you're at, unless you've just got great ears and you can just by ear be able to hear where you need to be on the neck. And that's a gifting that I just wish I had, but most people don't have that good of a gifting. We got to actually look and see where our fingers are at and kind of learn where we need to be on the neck. Another thing you got to watch out for is as your bass heats up or cools down, that's going to change the tension on the strings. It's not as big a deal on a fretted bass, but you'll notice it more on a fretless. For example, when we get up on the platform and we get ready to play, usually my bass is colder because the air conditioner is so cold in the sanctuary. So before I get I got a moth in here, get out of here, moth. So before I start playing, the bass has cooled down, the strings have tightened up, so as I play, usually where my placement on the fretboard is going to be will differ just a little bit as the bass warms up. So so when you tune your bass, and that's the interesting thing too, is even though your bass might not be exactly in tune, though, you can still, if you're playing and realize, oh, this string's out, you can actually kind of adjust your finger to make up for this moth is flying all around me, it's distracting me. So you can actually adjust where you play on the neck to make up for your string that might be completely out of whack. So it does give you some flexibility there, but you've got to always kind of be on your toes as to where you are. What I recommend is when you first start playing, keep a tuner on. If you've got a tuner where you can continue to, like say something you clip on the headstock of your bass, or whether you've got, get out of here, moth, or whether you have a pedal or a rack-mounted tuner that you can have it be active while you're playing, and just kind of watch your fingers and watch the tuner and start learning where you've got to place your fingers on the neck. And do that not just once, because again, temperature changes, humidity, different things like that, and just kind of get used to how your bass reacts in different environments, how the strings react in different environments. And but really, that's the main thing you got to think about on a fretless. I enjoy playing a fretless. It's really, the question comes up, well, isn't it harder to play? And really, no, it's not. You just have to concentrate more on the bass and where your fingers are going. And as long as you do that, then it's really not, it's actually easier to play in that it's less fatiguing on your hands. So that is definitely a huge advantage. If you suffer from tendonitis or stuff like that, switching to a fretless bass might actually save you from having to stop play. And it definitely has helped me to keep fatigue down on my arm, so in my left hand. So give that a try. If you're hurting a lot, then definitely think about getting a fretless bass. Or if you just want to try it out and get a different sound, it's definitely a cool instrument to play. Again, it works great in a worship environment. It really allows you to play smoothly and get sounds that are just really smooth. That's the best way I can describe it. So anyway, I hope this is helpful to you. Thanks.